Mabuhay, Kamustika, welcome, how are you? This is Bob from Love Beyond the Sea on a very snowy day here in Nebraska. Want to talk today about 6 threats to your comfort zone to marry a Filipina. And you can tag this along with the previous video. I'm talking about cultural differences, interracial marriage. Right away, you might want to think about those things. Maybe they make you uncomfortable. About trying to hook up with a woman from the Philippines. I've got 6 more to talk about today, and perhaps right after that I'll do a video on 9 more to wrap up 17 total threats to your comfort zone to marry a Filipina. So again, I talked about culture and interracial marriage in the last one. Leave comments if you can relate to any of these, or if you can think of some ones that I don't mention. And today I'll talk about getting scammed, length of time it takes to get to know her, younger wife, going through that visa process, communication, and being too far away. Please subscribe to Love Beyond the Sea to learn about the process of pursuing a Filipina to marry and how to be married to her, how to make it last. Essentially, that's all this channel is about. Go ahead and leave questions again. Check out my website, lvbts.com. And I have some podcasts you can listen to there as well. So let's start with getting scammed. This is like making any monetary investment. You're always concerned about losing it to a recession or a depression. Something happens beyond your control that causes a big loss. Like they say, no risk, no reward. It's no different in an international relationship. It is just a matter of minimizing risk or not investing more than you can afford to live without. There's no end, no shortage of videos on YouTube that can help you with avoiding getting scammed. This is something you can educate yourself on and minimize your risk. In short, I think it just comes down to being wary of becoming too emotionally involved when you haven't made a commitment to this woman. And please don't send money to a Filipina you haven't met yet. The good Filipinas are not going to ask for your help. Another one here, it could take too long to get to know them. Somebody could say, wow, how does that work? They're so far away, it could take forever. Well, it didn't take me forever to decide that I knew her well enough. Now, compared to someone who lives across the street from you, does it have to take more time to get to know them well enough to get married? Does the very long distance mean you won't have enough time to get to know them well enough? I can see this being a big concern. If you focus on one Filipina at a time, though, that will help minimize the time to know her, and so will the belief that you don't have to know all of her inner workings before proposing, that you don't have to know her inside and out. I was 53 at the time, back in 2015, when I proposed to my wife and got married. And looking back, 53 isn't really maybe that old, although it seemed like it. But I didn't want to spend 5 more years looking around, as time is limited. It gets more valuable the older we get. So, and I try to emphasize that in my videos and podcasts. We're not in our 20s anymore. In fact, I proposed on day 18. 1-8. I knew what I needed to know and was willing to learn the rest of what I could know over the course of the rest of our marriage. Foolish? I didn't think so. I believed that ultimately it came down to how I treated her as long as I made a good choice to begin with. There are no perfect wives, not even in the Philippines, believe it or not. With Love Beyond the Sea and my podcasts on casting beyond the sea, I don't advocate a quick marriage for anyone, really, and it wasn't something I sought out to do. I just recognized the potential that we had, and I proposed to her. I knew she would become my top priority, and I wanted to make her dreams come true and take care of that woman. Another thing that might make you reluctant, a threat to your comfort zone, not what you're expecting, is the possibility of having a younger wife. There could be reservations here, although you might be very intrigued. Please see my Young Wife playlist for videos about this distinction. I'm a big fan of this, but not every man, for their own reasons, is enamored with a wife 15, 20, 30 years younger than they are. I don't think there's anything unethical about it, or I wouldn't have pursued it. I talk about that in that playlist as well. Whether this works out for you or not will depend on how you treat her, as long as she isn't intent on scamming you. Marrying a Filipina 10 years younger might not, be seen as marrying a younger woman over there, but here in America it certainly would be. It may be that less than 0.5% of couples in America have a 27-year age gap like we do, but it's working for us. I will just defer to my videos and podcasts on this because we could talk about this all day, but don't hesitate to leave a comment so I can address it. Let's talk about the visa process briefly. I can relate to this from experiencing it myself. I knew absolutely nothing about this visa process when I got on that first plane out of Nebraska to go to the Philippines in 2015. I also knew if I could afford to do it, I would pay someone to help with it, so it goes smoother without mistakes and delays. I have an affiliate link on lvbts.com under Find Your LVBTS, which is Love Beyond the Sea, that will take you to the visa services offered presently by Christian Filipina. Many have done it on their own. It's the website for what is needed from the U.S. Embassy in Manila. Has all the information. My concern was that it get executed properly. I guess I didn't trust myself. This is also something with a lot of help online or on YouTube videos if you prefer. Another thing that could make you a little uncomfortable is the area of communication. Another understandable area now that I think I can help you with, as I've done a couple of live streams on questions to ask during different stages of the relationship. In fact, I have 4 lists of questions you can ask a Filipina as you pass through different stages of seriousness. If you are worried that a younger Filipina will be afraid to talk to you, I think it's more likely to be the other way around. So those questions are on the lvbts.com website. There's a link, something to click on near the top over there. Now, I found the Filipinas to be easy to talk to. It could be a little shy, but it wouldn't really interfere with communication. I found them to be comfortable on these webcams. The only difficulty I had with my wife was early on when we texted. There were times we misunderstood each other, but that didn't seem to happen when we were doing a Skype webcam. Another thing here, probably the last thing I'll mention here today for this one, you could say, Philippines, where is that? Well, in my case, 9,800 flight miles. That can be intimidating. You might think it's just too far away. So it takes a lot of time. From Nebraska to Davao City requires 4 flights, regardless of the route, and from 26 hours minimum. That's minimum. That's a great situation. That's ideal. If you can end up with very short layovers and not miss your flight. Otherwise, it can stretch into 34, 36 hours or more if you're trying to save money. That is a lot of time. It involves layovers in maybe warm airports, not always, and the normal requirements of knowing where you are to go, the next place you go at the airport, going to customs, TSA, all of that stuff. And some of you have not flown much before or flown internationally before. That could be a concern. Now, sitting a lot can give some of us a sore back, and it can be difficult to sleep on the flights too, even if you're not having a sore back. Even when they turn the lights off in the plane and it's nice and dark and you're comfortable, if you're not used to it, you just still may not be able to sleep. As you know by now, I just take one step at a time without knowing much about the next step. When I flew to the Philippines to marry my wife, I didn't even know what the term check-in meant. To be honest with you, I still don't know what it means or why it matters. My wife handles that for us when we travel, thankfully. When I arrived in LAX, I didn't know what to do next, or at least I forgot. I asked the first airport worker where I needed to go, and they told me to stand in a certain line, but after about half an hour, I realized it hadn't moved very much. Maybe this was not right. Called my travel agent, and they said, well, you should be taking a certain shuttle bus to Terminal 2. After getting there, I was greeted by a long, vacant, long counter at Philippine Airlines. Didn't have a good feeling about that. So I put down my things, my bags, called my agent, and they asked if I checked in. I told her, yeah, I'm here. That's what I thought it meant, essentially just show up. But the flight had already boarded. I'm standing there with no one at Philippine Airlines to speak with. I found a Filipino airport worker and told them, hey, I have to get on that plane because I was going to meet a Filipina for the first time and we were going to get married. Got to get me on that plane. They got on the radio, talked to someone who came over and took me somewhere else, eventually, through some security and upstairs. Then I realized that when I had called my travel agent and put those bags on the floor, I left one of them there. And wherever it was now, it had my meds and my wedding ring in it for her. Oops. They radioed downstairs. Fortunately, we were able to find the bag, ran it through the machine, handed it to me with some papers, and quickly escorted me as we jogged to the next place to stop. And they told me not to even bother showing them my papers. Just get on the plane. Get on there. I can't tell you how relieved I was. I couldn't see myself sitting there, standing there, sleeping there overnight or something, and then messing with another flight and throwing everything off. I had to get to the embassy on time for some paperwork there. So when I saw that first little Filipina stewardess, I knew I was on my way. The plane was playing some very pleasant music as I found my seat and waited for it to take off, and wondered if everybody was upset with me for probably delaying it. What an adventure that was. Stay tuned to even more things, 9 more things next time I want you to think about that could be threats to your comfort zone. And you will want to think through before you decide to pursue your love beyond the sea.